the end of luxury really does not leave us alone as a topic. About a year or two ago, we had the quiet luxury trend. That was a trend. But the end of luxury is not just a trending topic to talk about. I mean, I started talking about it back in 2022, even earlier. It's an ongoing phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that really marks not just the end, but the death of luxury and fashion as we know it. Now, there's a lot to say about this topic in general, and I have touched base on it in many other videos, so go check out my library of videos. There's over 2,000 videos on my channel, and get informed and start the conversation together with us, because it really, really warrants opening our eyes about this. And just now, at the end of the year, as if 2024 were not, already difficult enough, here we go again, just to squeeze in one more major drama and sad moment before the year ends. Luxury and its deceitful exploitation gimmicks and strategies never seem to end. And more newspapers and also important publications are realizing this, noticing this, acknowledging it, and doing their research and reporting. And I gotta say, this is a really fabulous article here by The Guardian. And kudos right from the get-go. And I'm just here to spread awareness about this and to comment on this article that I'm going to review together with you guys. And I just want to say huge kudos and congratulations to Tom Levitt, Maya Courtoise, and Simon Mavu in Epernay. Pardon me if I mispronounce your names, but you guys are awesome. Huge love to you and support. You guys together did a wonderful job with this article by The Guardian. And we're going to be talking about the homeless and hungry migrants being exploited by France's luxury corporations. You want to call them that way. This is insane. This article is really eye-opening. So, this is an exclusive. It says, The Guardian investigation finds an underpaid, underfed workforce, some of whom are forced to sleep on the streets, exploited by a system of labor providers. This is happening in France, okay, as we speak. This is insane. Now, everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. And I ask you kindly to subscribe to my channel, to support the channel, thumb up this video. Let's get to all the details. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together there for extra perks, or you can push the join button on my main channel to gain access to extra perks and to support the channel, because as you can see, I'm not sitting here telling you this video is sponsored by. You guys are my sponsors because you support the channel. You watch it, you thumb it up, you send the tips. Thank you guys so much for keeping us going. And so The Guardian reports about, well, interesting that this news is breaking now right before New Year's Eve. Why? Well, a lot of people love to celebrate during New Year's Eve with a little bit of extra luxury. What would that luxury be? Champagne. And of course, champagne is a registered trademark of the region of Champagne in France. And well, it's a luxury, and champagne can vary in price and go up to hundreds of thousands of dollars even. And yet, who makes champagne? And how much are the people who are making this luxury drink? How much are they making? How much are they earning? The title of the article is Champagne's Sordid Secret. The homeless and hungry migrants picking grapes for France's luxury winemakers. A Guardian investigation has found that workers in France's champagne industry are being underpaid and forced to sleep on the streets and steal food to stave off hunger. Workers from West Africa and Eastern Europe in the town of Epernay, home to the headquarters of some of the world's most expensive champagne brands, including Moët Chandon and Mercier, claim that they are either not being paid for their work or illegally underpaid by vineyards near the town. The Guardian found workers in the town sleeping on the streets or in tents, as the vineyards did not provide accommodation. Other workers staying in a nearby village said they had been forced to steal food from local people as they did not have anywhere to buy provisions. You have to understand, like, we're talking about little villages where there's vineyards all around them, and it's not like you're in a big city and at the end of the day you go to a public bus that drives you back into the city where you go get some fast food quickly, you're tired, you sleep in some apartment that you're living in with other 10 immigrants, and then the next day you go back to work the fields. We're talking you're in the middle of a village. There's no bus taking you to any city. There's no city nearby. There's no supermarket. You need a car to drive away to a place where there is a super. There's nothing. And they don't even offer you accommodation. And then these people are forced to steal food to survive. I mean, this has to stop. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you can't pay people a fair, decent wage to pick your grapes? I have no word. How greedy, like, how deep does this go? How much more humanity can we lose? Bunty Joy says, let them eat grapes. Natasha says, a bottle, €300, and you can't pay a decent wage? Lol. Bitch, this is effed up. This is so effed up. Listen, it gets even worse, you guys. It gets worse. Thumb up the video and listen. Last year, 300 million bottles of champagne from the vineyards of northern France were shipped around the world, generating €6 billion. That's probably over $7 billion if we do the currency conversion. Yet the champagne industry has been hit by a string of controversies related to its treatment of grape pickers, with 4 workers dying. We've come that far. We've come that far. With 4 workers dying from suspected sunstroke during last year's harvest. In a case scheduled to go to court early next year, 4 people, including a vineyard owner, have been charged with human trafficking. I told you it gets worse. And it got worse. So we're not just talking about people being underpaid, exploited. We're talking people perishing under these working conditions. And we're talking human trafficking. And when it comes to human trafficking, it means somebody steals your passport from you and forces you to do labor, and you have no place to go. In Epernay, the grand offices of the world's most luxurious champagne brands sit side by side on the town's Champagne Avenue, where tens of millions of bottles of champagne reported to be stored underground have led the avenue to be named the richest street in the world. Just a few minutes' walk away, dozens of workers responsible for harvesting the champagne grapes are getting ready to sleep in the doorway of the cinema opposite the town's main train station. Another group of people from French-speaking Africa are collecting belongings hidden in bushes after returning from a day's grape picking. They don't even have a place to store their little belongings that they have when they go to work. It's not like there's a room with lockers. You put your stuff in your locker, you lock it, you have the key, and then you get your private belongings at the end of a hard day's work, and you go back to your locker, you unlock it, you take your stuff. There's no locker. You gotta find a bush where you have to hide your shit in the hopes that nobody's gonna find your stuff while you're working. And then at the end of a hard day's work, you gotta go to that bush and hope that your stuff is still inside that bush. And you gotta hope it doesn't rain that day. I have no words. One of these people, Eunice, says he's been working on vineyards for 3 days, but remains vague about where he will be sleeping tonight. He says, I will sleep outside. Eunice, like other workers, had been drawn to the region by the promise of a well-paid job, picking some of the most expensive grapes in the world during August and September. Even the cheapest bottle of champagne is rarely sold for less than 20 pounds. Another worker, whose name remains kind of, they changed the name to conceal the identity, says she was left to sleep on a soaking mattress in a tent after heavy rainfall during this year's harvest. She says they were put under pressure to work faster. Every night we wondered whether we were going to be fired the next morning or not. Her payslip showed she was paid less than the French minimum hourly wage, and she was paid no overtime. Unions blame vineyards for continuing to blindly accept cheap labor and the sector as a whole for failing to ban exploitative labor providers. They say some vineyard owners try to justify themselves by arguing that they are helping African migrants by giving them employment, even if said employment is underpaid. It's greed. The grapes are selling for €10 to €12 a kilo. That's 8 to 10 pounds a kilo. So it's shocking to treat people this bad, says Jose Blanco, Secretary General of the General Confederation of Labor, or CGT, trade union in the Champagne region. They look at them as machines, not as humans. Canute was living in Paris when he heard about a job in the countryside promising €80 a day. That's round about $85 to $90 a day. Originally a migrant from Mali, he had been surviving for a decade on a series of low-paid cleaning and dishwashing jobs, so he jumped at the opportunity. A few days after starting work in September 2023, Canute, 30, who's 30 years old, says he and more than 50 other workers, most of whom were undocumented migrants from West Africa, found themselves hungry and living in a dilapidated house in the village of Nellerepont, sorry for butchering the name, on the Champagne tourist route in northeast France. They had been left to survive on one sandwich a day, given to them at lunchtime as they were transported between vineyards in the area, says Canute, and became so desperate that they started to steal food from neighboring fields in the village. We worked hard and were promised a salary and bonuses, but we didn't get anything, he says. We'd go round ringing people's doorbells looking for cigarettes. Sometimes people would see us coming and they would close the doors. It was hard on our dignity. The legal minimum wage is €9.23 an hour after deductions, meaning the workers should have been paid between €100 and €110 each day, much more than the €80 promised by the recruiters. Canute says he ended up being paid €200 by the providers for one entire week of work. Most of the other workers allegedly returned to Paris without any payment for their labor. They were treated like dogs. A retired wine grower living opposite the workers' house in the village says that people who do that aren't wine growers. They're exploiters. It's a shame. It doesn't give a good image of Champagne. Allegedly, of course. Now, you know, it goes on and on. The article is much longer than this. I recommend you to go to The Guardian and read it yourself, obviously. It just keeps going and going. And the more you read it, and it just brings you to tears because it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's like one example after the next example after the next example. And then it ends with, when we hear these terms, human trafficking, associated with our region, we can only be shocked. These shameful practices do not reflect the commitment of a passionate profession, and zero tolerance must be applied, it says. It has reminded wine growers that using a service provider cannot cost less than direct employment. Low prices may be an indication of dubious practices and should draw your attention. They're also talking about a concept that was very popular in Sicily, omertà, silence. Everybody's complicit. And also, it's really difficult to get to the root of the problem here because it's not like you can just go for the big brands because they're protected. The big brands don't hire these people. The big brand that sells the champagne, they're going to hire a subcontractor. That subcontractor is going to hire another subcontractor who's going to hire the vineyard. The vineyard is going to hire somebody, a recruiter. The recruiter is going to bring the people into work. The recruiter is going to pay them. So basically, everybody legally pushes away the responsibility from themselves so that in case they do get in trouble and in case the news like this drops, they can always say, we had no clue. We're not responsible. We were paying all the amount that we were supposed to be paying to the people that we contracted to employ the people to work in the fields, but we didn't employ them. We had no clue that this was going. You know what I mean? And this is the same game that LVMH played with Dior this past summer when the courts in Milan said, okay, you're selling a bag for 2,600 euro in your boutiques, but you're paying for it 54 euro, allegedly. So who manufactured a bag that cheap? You know, sweatshops. Oh, Dior had no clue. Really? But you were okay paying 54 euro for a bag that you then sold later on in your boutique for 2,600 euro. But yeah, but legally, we had no clue. I'm like, well, how did you have no clue? You had a clue, but legally, you see, so this is why the courts in Milan said, we're going to take over for, I think, a year. Was it a year or 2 years? I can't remember what the ruling of the court was. Like, they're going to take over, the authorities are going to take over the control of how their payments are run, what subcontractor is doing what, you know what I mean? Just to keep an eye out, like what's going on. But of course, LVMH says, we had no clue. So they're playing the dumb game. And Europe, yeah, they keep saying they're doing a lot to make all of this stop. But are they, though? They're not giving me a good vibe. I don't feel like anything is really being done to make things better. Prove me wrong. Of course, everything I said in this video was alleged, but this just breaks my heart. This has to stop. This really, really, really has to stop, you guys. This is heartbreaking, you know? Heartbreaking. Really, really heartbreaking. I'm devastated. The abuse has to stop. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thumb up this video and subscribe. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love, even though luxury is dead.